Dear teachers, welcome to the training course on overview of water resources sector in India. I am R. Tangamani, Director, National Water Academy, Pune. I belong to the 1994 batch of engineering services and working in this water resource sector for the last 25 years. This course, primarily designed for the school teachers, contains three sections. First session is overview of water resources. Second session, water conservation. Third session, water quality. In this first session, we will give you the overall idea about the water resource scenario of India, key issues, and how we are going to tackle about it. National Water Academy always delighted to deal with teachers, because training one teacher is equal to training one whole school. Before we get into our technical discussion, let us quickly go through the three courses about the teachers. Better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. Why? Teacher not only imparts the knowledge available in the book, he transfers his experience also. So, a student to be trained by a great teacher is very much essential. Second quote, good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. Whether we know it or not, each teacher makes a great impact in the life of the student. And the third quote is, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires. I consider you all as inspiring teachers because in spite of your busy schedule, you made to attend this training program. This is the fundamental hierarchical cycle which we study from our school days. Considering the importance, let us have a quick go through about this hierarchical cycle. Hierarchical cycle have two primary components. One is evaporation, which is followed by the condensation. Let us have where from evaporation happens. Evaporation happens from ocean, evaporation from the lake or the surface water body, and evapotranspiration from the trees. So when this evaporation takes place, which is again followed by the condensation. Condensation again happens in the form of a precipitation. That precipitation includes rain, snowfall, hails, and all forms of the precipitation. And the evaporation, the major part again goes back to the ocean as the precipitation. The precipitation which falls on the surface or land mass is only going to help us, and the precipitation which falls in the snow peak areas also help during the summer months. Once the rain falls, it takes in the form of infiltration and reaches the ground, and part of the water flows as a groundwater flow. The excess surface water flow and the groundwater flow finally meets the ocean, and it completes the hydrological cycle. The source for this evaporation, as everybody knows, is the heat from the sun. This hydrological cycle may be a new for you. This talks about the quantification. First, let us go one by one. How much evaporation takes from the ocean? 5,02,800 kilometer cube. This much water evaporates from the ocean, out of which 4,58,000 kilometer cube water again comes back to the ocean as a precipitation. It means 90% of the evaporation happens from ocean, again goes back to the ocean. Comes to the evaporates from the lakes. 9,000 kilometer cube evaporates, and again the 9000 kilometer cube comes back as the precipitation. Now let us come to the evapotranspiration. How much evapotranspiration happens through the trees or forest is 65,200 kilometer cube. But how much it comes back is 1,10,000 kilometer cube. Where from this excess water the evapotranspiration brings? The trees or forest cover attracts the evaporation from the ocean and it adds to the precipitation. That is why we always insist that grow more trees means the evapotranspiration happens through the trees, it attracts the evaporation from the ocean and make it as a precipitation in the land mass. So growing more trees will attract the more water of evaporation from the ocean. These few units I have used in our presentation with respect to area and with respect to volume. Let us come first about the area. I used here the hectare. Acre means a piece of land or plot of land measuring 10 meter by 10 meter is called 1 acre, or 100 square meter is 1 acre. Hectare means 100. So hectare or hectare, it means 10,000 square meter. In my presentation I will be using million hectares. It means million means 10 lakh hectares or 10 power 6 hectares. The next unit I use in my presentation is 1000 million cubic feet. In short, it is called as a TMC. Let us take a box or a container with 1000 feet length, 1000 feet breadth and 1000 feet height. The water accommodated in this container is called 1000 million cubic feet or simply 1 TMC. Next, billion cubic meter. In the similar fashion, take a box or container of 1000 meter, 1000 meter and 1000 meter. The water accommodated in this container is called 1 billion cubic meter. Where we use this unit? Generally this TMC or billion cubic meter are magnitude of high order. So we use it whenever to mention about the quantity of water of high order, especially the water stored in the dam, the water stored in the barrage. Generally we mention in the term of TMC. For example, the capacity of the live storage capacity of the Mettur dam located on the Kaveri river in Tamil Nadu, generally it is of the order of 75 TMC. So when we talk about this one, you have a holistic idea, and by seeing these two figures you will be knowing that billion cubic meter is the bigger unit than the TMC. The conversion factor is 1 billion cubic meter is equal to 35.31 TMC. This slide talks about the global water scenario. The total water available on the earth is 14,000 million BCM, million times BCM. Out of this available water, 97.5% is ocean water and only 2.5% is fresh water. We all know that the ocean water is salt and saline. Suppose let us imagine that if ocean water is also a fresh water, then absolutely there will not be any water source problem in the whole earth. But because of the salinity, we are entirely depending on this fresh water of 2.5%. Again, this fresh water 2.5%, where it is available, if you come to the further split here, 75% of the fresh water is available in the polar region of North Pole and South Pole, and 13% is available far deep at ground level, more than 800 to 4000 meters, which we cannot extract. 10% of water is available at a depth less than 800 meter, and other sources are 2%. So whatever we do or whatever we use, whatever we play, That is within these 12% of the 2.5%. Where India stands with regard to world resources. With regard to land, we have 2.4% of the world land area, comparatively good area. And with regard to renewable water resources, we have 4%. It means nature blessed us almost twice when compared with our land resources. Nature blessed with abundance water, the country. The next is population. We have 17% of our whole world population. This is not nature's blessing. It is we blessed ourselves too much. It means we will conclude 2.4% of land resources, 4% of water resources and 17% of population. The picture shows the graphically our contribution in the world. We will go to the next slide. This is the river basins of India. Different colors have been used to demarcate the basin boundaries. Let us have a quick look at the important river basins of India. At the top is the Indus River, which flows to Pakistan, and the lifeline of India is the Ganga basin, which flows to the Bangladesh, and this is the Brahmaputra basin, Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, and this is Kaveri, west flowing rivers of Kerala and Karnataka, Narmada, and west flowing rivers of Rajasthan. This constitutes the entire river basin of India. The nomenclature gives you the detailed river basin details, which we will be seeing in the coming slides. This is one of the important slides where we have to spend considerable time and understand it very clearly. The total precipitation in the form of rainfall, snowfall or hails, it amounts to 3,880 billion cubic meter. Out of this 3,880, the available water is only 1,999. The question comes, where the balance water goes. The balance water goes back to the atmospheric system. Here I have shown two figures in the bracket. With regard to total precipitation, I have shown 4000 BCM. With regard to total availability, I have shown 1869 BCM. This is what is available in your textbook of NCERT or state government. How this new figure comes is, recently Ministry of Jal Shakti reassessed the entire water availability and they have come out with the new figures. That's why I have taken the new figures. With regard to the school teachers, you can keep this number 4000 and 1869, which is available in your textbook. Now come to it. Among the 1999, only 1123 BCM is available for utilization. Then again the next question comes, why this difference between 199 and 1123 BCM? Again it is because of the topography and other reasons we are unable to utilize the water. This we will see detailedly in the coming slides. After the 1123, the surface water which flows through rivers or streams constitutes 690 BCM and the groundwater constitutes 433 BCM. Out of the 690, as on date we are using 450, which is approximately 65%. Out of 433 BCM of groundwater, we use approximately 250 BCM, which works out to 58%. The surface water available or which we are using and the groundwater which we are using is sufficiently enough to meet our present demands only. but the future demand, how we are going to meet, that we will see in the coming slides. This picture talks about the basin-wise availability of the surface water. For your convenience, I have taken the 1869 BCM only. Out of this 1869 BCM, if you look at it, in Ganga 525 BCM and Brahmaputra almost 600 BCM. So these put together, Ganga and Brahmaputra put together, it constitutes almost 1100 BCM. So that is why whatever the water we are using, the major share comes from these two basins. The remaining basin constitutes the balance. After the 1869, only 690 is surface water available for utilization. This gap makes us to improve further. Where the water gone? Out of Ganga, 500 TMC almost, we are using 50%, 250 TM BCM we are using it. But on Brahmaputra, out of 550, only 24 BCM we are using. Why we are not using the water resources of Brahmaputra to its full potential? That is due to topography. So in future, if we want to improve our utilizable water for our purpose, the major concentration shall be on the Ganga and Brahmaputra. This slide talks about the rainfall pattern of India. First, let us have the pictorial representation. The dark blue is the heavy rainfall area and lighter the blue, it is less rainfall. If you look at this map, the west flowing areas of Kerala, Karnataka and Maharashtra and Assam, Meghalaya, they are the high rainfall area, and the area of the western Rajasthan, it is the very low rainfall area. This pattern of change in pattern of rainfall is called spatial variation. Spatial variation means variation with respect to space. Now let us have a look at the figure. The average rainfall of all India is 117 centimeter, whereas the maximum rainfall happens at Meghalaya near Cherrapunji, which is 1100 centimeter, and the minimum rainfall at Rajasthan, western Rajasthan, which is only 10 centimeter. Suppose, let us imagine that if the rainfall happens uniformly throughout the country without any spatial variation, then half of our problem is solved, because all the region will be sufficiently or equally distributed with water. But it is because of the spatial distribution, one area is blessed with abundance of water and the other area is blessed with very low quantity of water. Among the precipitation of approximately 4000 BCM every year, the 3000 BCM happens during the monsoon month of 4 months, June to September. This we will discuss in the next slide. This graph shows the rainfall pattern from January to December. As I told, our annual rainfall is 1170 millimeter or 117 centimeter, out of which 75% happens from June, July, August and September, these 4 months. It means the concentration of rainfall is within these 4 months. So this is called temporal variation. Temporal variation means variation of rainfall with respect to time. These 4 months means, let us take 4 into 30, 120 days. Again, In the 120 days, the rainfall does not happen daily. The rainfall days may be 55 to 60 days only. Again, that 3000 BCM or 75% of our 4000 BCM happens just in 50 to 60 days. This concentration of rainfall, 75% of the rainfall within 50-60 days is the major cause of all our water resources problem. This slide talks about the per capita water availability. What is per capita water availability? As I told, our surface water availability is 1869 BCM. This you converted it into cubic meter and divided by your population. That is your per capita water availability per person per year. If you look at this table, in 1951, our population is 361 millions or 36 crores. At that time, the water available per person per year is 5177 cubic meter. From 1951, in 2001, that per capita water availability reduced from 5177 to 1820. This happened because the water availability is fixed, the numerator is fixed, but the denominator, if you look at it, 1951 to 2001, our population almost increased 3 times. When the denominator increases, the water availability also decreases. By 2050, we are going to have only 1140 cubic meter of water per person per year. What? The question is whether this 1140 is sufficient or not sufficient. We will see in the next slide. This is talks about the population growth of India. From 1951, our population from 361 millions or 36 crores. In 2011, it increased to 1211 millions or 121 crores. And by 2050, we are expecting 1640 millions or 164 crores. So within a span of about 100 years, our population is likely to increase by 130 crores additionally. This is the major concern. Earlier, we discussed about the per capita water availability. By 2050, our per capita water availability is going to be 1140. If you look at this picture, as per the international standards, if the water availability is below 1700, then that country is a water stress country. If the water available per person per year is below 1000 cubic meter, then that country is a water scarce country. If you look at it, by 1951, India is neither water stress nor water scarce country. But by 2011, from water stress, now we are a water stress country now. It means our availability of water per person reached below the 1700 cubic meter. And if it continues, by 2050, after 2050, we will become a water scarce nation. So it is our duty to address these issues. This slide talks about the food requirement. As we all know, the current population of India is around 135 crores. The whole world look at India with high respect is for one simple reason, that we are self-sufficiency in the food grains. We are able to feed our 135 crore population without borrowing from any other country. And in addition to that one, we always have a 2 years buffer stock of food grains in case of any eventuality of drought. Now look at this table. 1950, our food protection and requirement is only 51 million tons. By 2010, our food protection is 240 million tons. By 2025, it is going to increase to 350 million tons. By 2050, it is going to increase to 450 million tons. It means we have to do something to increase our food production. Otherwise, our population will be facing some problem in the coming future. This is the food grain requirement in a graphical form. By 2050, as I told, we are supposed to produce 450 million tons of food grains. What is our current food production? We are producing our around 272 million tons of food grains. It means we have to add another 200 in the near future. This is with regard to the irrigation development. Because how we are going to increase our food grains? One is assured water supply to the irrigation field. Second is increase the food grain production by way of technology or by changing the varieties. So let us have a quick look at the development activities with regard to irrigation. The geographical area of India is 329 million hectares, out of which the cultivable land is 181 million hectares. Almost 2/3 of our area is cultivable. Remaining 1/3 we cannot do any cultivation for topographical and other reasons. And what is our irrigation potential? With regard to the availability of water, we can provide irrigation approximately, our irrigation potential is approximately 140 million hectares, and up to August 2018 we created around 126 million hectares potential. It means 90% of ultimate irrigation potential have been achieved so far. We will move to the next slide. What achievements so far we have made in the water sector? This picture shows the water resources storage structures throughout the country. If you look at this number, as on date, we have 5,334 large dams already existing and 411 new dams are under construction. So totally 5745 large dams. And how much storage we are having? Live storage 257.8 already created, 46.8 is under pipeline. So totally 304.6 billion cubic meter. Live storage is our biggest achievement in the last so many decades. With regard to food grain production, as we already told, we are self-sufficient in food. As on date, we are producing 272 million tons of food grains every year, which is sufficient for our present need. By 2050, our requirement will be around 450 million tons. And why we are concentrating much on this food grain and irrigation part is because agriculture is the one sector which uses 75 to 80% of our water resources. The major stakeholder of our water is agriculture sector. With regard to hydropower development, where we are standing. Before we go to the numbers, I want to tell the school teachers one issue. What is hydropower? Hydropower is nothing but the power produced through the stored water in the dams, barrages, by using the water stored. Whenever we store water in the dam, the height of the water column is increased. So using the water head, we produce power by passing the water through the turbine. By passing the water through the turbine, we are only using the head. The water again comes back to the canal or river network. So that power also, hydropower also contributes our daily requirement. If you see the whole India potential, we are having 1,48,701 megawatt of potential. This much hydropower potential we are having. This megawatt means it is a power unit. What we are using in our households, generally we call it as a kilowatt. Kilowatt means 10 power 3 watt. Megawatt means 10 power 6 watt. 1 kilowatt of power, if it is consumed for 1 hour, that is what we call as a 1 unit, electrical unit in our household, for which we are paying the electricity bill. Now come over here, out of 1,48,000 hydropower potential, under operation is only 40,000 approximately, and under construction is around 11,000. What happens to the balance almost 90,000 megawatt of potential? Why it is not harvested? The next slide will tell you. This slide talks about the hydropower potential basin wise. The first is Indus Basin. The violet color is already developed potential. The dark pink, that is the underdeveloped, and yellow is the balance to be developed. If you look at it, Indus Basin, Ganga Basin, some hydropower potential are to be harnessed or to be tapped. And come over here, the Brahmaputra river, so far we have tapped only 8,000 megawatt of power, and 57,000 megawatt power is yet to be tapped. What is the main reason? Because it is location. It is located in the northeast region of India, where it is many times a hardship to install the hydropower plants and other issues. This slide talks about the projected water demand sector wise. As I already told you, irrigation is the major usage of water. Almost 80%, more than 80% used by water. And from 2000, our water requirement from 634 billion cubic meter. By 2025, it is going to be 1093 billion cubic meter. By 2050, our requirement is going to be 1447 billion cubic meter. Our aim is how we are going to address our future requirement of water. This slide talks about the groundwater scenario of country. Let us have only look at the two important aspects. Total annual groundwater recharge is 433 BCM, out of which every year we are using 231 BCM. It means we are pumping out. Only these two figures let us remember. And next is who is using this groundwater. Every year we are taking the groundwater to the tune of 231 billion cubic meter. Who is using is, come here, out of 231, 200 BM is used for irrigation, and around 30 is used for domestic and industrial use. So whenever farmer needs some water, what immediately he does? Put a borewell and pump the water. This accounts for the groundwater. But the next question is it correct always to pump the groundwater? In a lighter vein, we always say that surface water is like a savings bank account, and the groundwater is like a fixed deposit account. The fixed deposit, you should break it whenever there is an urgent need only. In the normal circumstances, you have to use your surface water only. What happens if you always use groundwater, or if you always break the fixed deposit for the normal usages? Is whenever there is an essential need, the water in the ground will not be available. That is the reason. This is the picture where the replenishable groundwater is available. The dark blue is the area where high groundwater potential is available. It means the dark blue is 0.5 to 10 meter is recharge is happening every year. These are all the areas where we can pump the groundwater. But unfortunately what happens, those areas are also blessed with the high surface water. The areas like Rajasthan, they are neither blessed with surface water nor blessed with groundwater. It's a vice versa. So this picture gives the idea about the groundwater replenishable status. This is one important slide. As I already told, whenever the farmer needs water, he put a borehole and pumps the water. Now this slide tells you the status of groundwater throughout the country. It has been divided into categories. First category is overexploited, critical, semi-critical, safe, saline, not assessed. What is overexploited? If you look at here, the dark brown, overexploited means you are pumping the groundwater more than the recharging. Suppose let me say this year because of rain the water is recharged for 2 meter depth and I am pumping out 3 meter water. Then that is called over exploitation. Next, if you keep on over exploit, what happens? Finally a stage will come that block will not go back to its original position. That ground will not recharge to its original position. So the Central Groundwater Board accordingly categorized throughout the country. Over exploited means we should be doubly careful. If you look at these areas, the Punjab and Haryana, this is mainly because the farmers are using the maximum amount of water for irrigation through borehole. And the yellow color is critical blocks. Critical means if you are not taking care now, it will be a over-exploited block in the near future. So accordingly the block wise it is segregated. Now we are coming to the issues in water resource sector. So let us have a quick summary of what we discussed so far. First we have discussed is 4000 BCM is approximately our annual precipitation. After the 4000 BCM, 1869 BCM is the water available. The balance goes back to the atmosphere. Out of 1869, 690 is our surface water available for our usages. And the groundwater and surface water put together, the water available for our usage is 1123 BCM only. With 1123 BCM only, we have to address all our issues. What are the issues? The first issue is quantity. If you look at this picture, this is the scenario in rural India. This is the scenario in urban India. Invariably, every people are affected by the non-availability of water or not available in sufficient quantity. So quantity is the first issue. In quantity there are two issues. One is the quantity may be sometimes excess also. That excess availability of water is called flood. This picture shows you the scenario of the flood during monsoon months of June to September. This is a picture of Chennai during 2015 flood. If you look at this picture, no one is spared. Residential area, airports and schools and colleges. In this picture, what you are seeing is, it's a post residential area in Chennai where you are seeing two boats are running in the main streets. They are running to rescue the people who are stranded in the flood. This is the cause of excess availability of water. That excess availability of water is called flood. Flood is one of the major problem for India, especially in the Ganga and Brahmaputra region. After the total area of 329 million hectares, the area prone to flood is 40 million hectares. Almost 1/8 area of India is prone to flood. How much protection we have given so far? We have given only to 10 million hectares only we have given. The next question comes, why not we protect entire 40 million hectares? We can protect, but that involves a huge cost. So we are balancing between the protection and management. And if you look at the statistics of the average of last so many years, every year 7.5 million hectares are affected, and every year we are losing 1600 human beings in the flood. And what about the monetary loss? If you take the last 10 years average, it is 5,000 crores every year. If you take last 50 years average, it is 1800 crores. It means in the current scenario, we are losing 5,000 crores and 1,600 human beings every year due to flood. We will move to the next slide. This picture shows the area liable to flood in India. The dark red are the area liable to be flooded. If you look at the basin, it is mainly the Ganga, some portion of Indus, Brahmaputra, the Godavari basin, and the west flowing rivers of Kerala, that is called Periyar, and the rivers of Gujarat. These are all the area prone to flood. The excess availability water is called flood. The insufficient water is called drought. Drought also equally affects almost 12% of the population is affected by flood. Unlike flood, the drought will not give any signal. The main difference between the flood and drought is flood is sudden. If the flood comes, everybody knows it. But if the drought comes, even the people who are affected by drought will be knowing after few months only. So by that way, drought is a very silent phenomena and flood is a sudden phenomena. But when compared to damages, drought is also not less. It creates a heavy damage in a long term. This is the blocks showing the drought. The pink color is the severely drought prone areas, yellow color is frequently prone areas, and the green one is least affected by drought. Now we discussed on the issues. One is quantity. Excess quantity also problem, insufficient quantity also a problem. And the next important issue is quality. Some of the people are not provided with quality drinking water. And the pathetic condition is the people who do not have access to quality drinking water are the marginalized people, poor people, and tribal people. So that is why one of the main mission of Government of India is to provide safe and quality drinking water to all population of the country. The next issue is in the water sector is climate change. Very often we read in the newspaper about the climate change. What is this climate change? Climate is a long-term phenomena where the global temperature rises from almost 1 to 2.5 degree throughout the globe. What happens if the temperature rises? If the temperature rises, the snow deposited in the glaciers, in the poles, it melts. Once it melts, again the water reaches the sea and the sea water level rises. Once the sea water level rises, the cities and countries located on the coastal areas will be affected very seriously. This is one issue. And other issue is this climate change phenomena brings the flood-like situation very severely. It means what happens? The effect of the flood damages, the effect of the droughts will be severe because of this climate change. The effect of drought, it is not only affects the water availability, it also affects the food grain protection. So this issue needs to be addressed sufficiently. So far we discussed two major issues. One is water availability. I will repeat it for our information sake. 4000 BCM is our precipitation, annual precipitation. Out of the annual precipitation, 1869 BCM only available water. The balance goes back to the atmosphere. And out of this 1869, only 1123 is available for our utilization. This 1123 only we are using for all our needs. So how we are going to address this one? And next we have seen the issues. One is first water availability we discussed. Second is issues. What are the issues? The excess water availability, flood, the insufficient water availability, drought, the water quality issues and climate change issues. With regard to that water availability, the main reason for is the spatial and temporal variation. So far we have discussed the water availability and the issues. Now we will see how we are going to tackle it. We are going to tackle these issues by three methodologies. One is developmental activities, second is management practices, third is research and technology. Before we go further, I will clarify with one simple example. My salary is, let us say, 1 lakh, and I feel it is not sufficient for my need. Then what I should do? Either I should increase my earning capacity. The increasing my earning capacity is nothing but our developmental activities. That is one way I am increasing my earning capacity. Suppose there is some difficulty in increasing my earning capacity. What I do? I have to reduce my expenditure. That is management practices. Suppose I am neither able to increase my earning nor able to reduce my expenditures. Then I should do some research. I should find it out where my expenditure goes or how can I optimize my expenditure. The same thing we are doing it in the water management practices. Developmental activity means increasing the water availability. How you will increase it? As I already told, out of 4000 BCM, 1869 only total water available. Out of 1869, 1123 only water available for utilization. This developmental activity means increasing the water available for utilization from 1123 closer to 1869. You have to see why we have not harnessed so far. You have to increase your utilizable water from 1123, move towards 1869. That is called your developmental activity. This is called supply side management. And next is management practices for optimum and efficient use of existing resources. As we already told, Irrigation is the major usage of water. See that how you can optimize and efficiently use it so that the water required is reduced and that much water is diverted for other uses. This is called demand side management. And third one is do research and find out innovative technologies. What are all these technologies or what are all these development and management activities we will see in the coming slides. How we can increase developmental activities means, as I told, increase your utilizable storage from 1123 to closer to 1869. I told one of the main reason is the water falls within the 4 months of the monsoon period. So what to do? The rain will not come as per your requirement. So when it falls, store it. So that is why the slogan of the present government or union government is, wherever the water falls, catch it. Catch it where it falls. So to catch it, what we have to do? We have to construct the storage structures. So these storage structures will address the issues of spatial and temporal variation. And once you construct the storage, it will reduce the flood effect, it will reduce the drought effect, and once you store the water, you can produce power. It will help in sediment control and it will act as a climate change resilient also. But the next question comes, is it so easy to construct storage structures? No. It involves huge capital cost. It involves interstate issues. It involves transfer of water from one basin to another basin. But to address our needs, we have to address all these issues. There is no other way. So storage contributes immensely in the economic development also. This slide will give you an idea about our storage position. Before independence, we are having 15.6 BCM of storage only, and our present storage is 257 BCM. And under construction and under formulation 109, and by 2050 our storage needed is 458 BCM. If you see it here approximately, it will match with our food grain requirement. Our present day food grain production is 272 million tons. And by 2050, our food requirement is 450 million tons. By coincidence, it is matching with our storage in BCM also, approximately, just for remembering. This is the per capita storage when compared to the global scenario. Per capita storage means what? How much is water is stored divided by our population. If you see, Russia is having 5,600 cubic meter storage per person per year. Brazil, USA, and come to India, we are having only 209 cubic meter of storage per person per year in our dams and reservoirs. It means this slide shows that we have to still increase our storages. In our previous slides, I told the water resources available in the basins of Ganga and Brahmaputra are not utilized fully. Those are the two basins where excess water is available. If you transfer that water to the needy basins, that is called interbasin transfer. Interbasin transfer means transferring water from rich basins to the deficit basins. What are the rich basins? Ganga and Brahmaputra, and to some extent Godavari and Mahanadi. We can transfer these waters to the other needy basins. For this, Government of India formed a plan which comprises 14 links in the Himalayan areas and 16 links in the peninsular region. If this 30 links is completed, it will add or it will increase our utilizable water by 210 BCM. It means from 1123, if we execute these links, we will be adding 210 BCM and we will move closer to 1869. This is the link picture of the proposed interlinking. This is being done by the National Water Development Agency, a separate department under Ministry of Jal Shakti, specifically looking after this interlinking of rivers. If you look at this, Brahmaputra is linked with Ganga, Ganga is linked with Mahanadi, Mahanadi is, it's a proposal, linked means proposal. Mahanadi proposed to link with Godavari, Godavari to Krishna, Krishna to Pennar, Pennar to Kaveri, and Kaveri to Vaigai, and Vaigai to Till and Vaipar. This is the complete scenario. If we implement, I think that will be the one of the greatest interbasin transfer in the whole world. But the present stage is the DPR for all the 30 links have been prepared, but it has a one important issues or problem is the concerned states have to agree for it for transfer. That is the main issue here, and Government of India is involved in the consultation process with the donor states. The receiving states like Karnataka and Andhra, they will be always ready because they are in the receiving end. But the donor states of the Ganga basin, of the Mahanadi basin, of the Godavari basin, they have to agree. So the consultation process is going on. The next development activity is groundwater recharge. Whenever the surface water flows, as I already told you, the groundwater storage is like our fixed deposit in the bank. Once you store, it is always available for your recovery. What we can do, how we can recharge it? Artificial recharge, percolation tanks, surface, dams, through which we can recharge it. But the next question comes is whether we can recharge it at all points. No. The soil conditions shall be favorable. If the soil condition is clay soil, then the water will not penetrate the ground so easily. So the clay soil, gravel soil, such type of soils are good for recharge. Now 14% of the total geographical area has been identified as a suitable for artificial recharge with monsoon surplus water, and this activity is being carried out. The next developmental activity is watershed development. What is the watershed development? It is the managing the groundwater and surface water combinedly for a particular basin in a holistic way. That is called watershed development. Rainwater harvesting. This is the very popular term. All the school teachers must be aware of it. In urban areas, what we do the rainwater harvesting through rooftop. In rural areas, the rainwater harvesting shall be done by the farm ponds, bunds, tanks and traditional structures. Another one of the development activities, desalination. India is gifted with 7,500 km of coastal length, coastal area, and all of you are aware that wherever coast is there, we have access to seawater. And if you do this desalination, you can convert into the salty seawater into potable drinking water. But what prevents us from doing the desalination is the high initial cost and high cost for operation and maintenance. And if you see here, the cost of protection also not so less, For 1000 liters of desalination, we are spending around 30 rupees. This cost will work out for drinking water purpose. But if you want to use the desalined water for irrigation, then the economy will not work out. Israel and Australia are the world leaders in the desalination activities. Water use efficiency. This is one of the important area. I want that school teachers to be aware of it. As we discussed earlier, irrigation is the sector where 80 to 85% of the water is being used. If you bring efficiency in irrigation sector, there will be huge saving in water. How we go for it? It means use efficiently and produce more crop per drop. By that way you will save lot of water. How we can increase our efficiency in the domestic sector? This is very popular again in schools. How to conserve water? Close the tap, use less water. We have one separate session of water conservation. So this will be dealt detailedly in that session. In industrial area, we can do the wastewater treatment, recycling, reduce the usages. Such things can be done and we can increase our efficiency. Distribution network. This picture is very interesting. If you see here, canal is carrying water and the solar panels are placed above it. By that way what happens? The water is stopped from being evaporated. That is first use. Second use, the solar power also produced. If you look at this picture, the long distance travel of water is done through pipeline instead of open canal. In open canal, the lot of water will be lost on the conveyance. So if you travel through pipe, the conveyance efficiency will be very high. Modernization of our old structures. When we talk about water harvesting, it is not a new technology. It is as old as our grandfathers, grandfathers. They all did the water harvesting structures as per their knowledge, as per their innovation, as per their ability. So what we can do is, those ancient or traditional water harvesting structures, we have to rejuvenate it and rebuild it. These traditional water harvest structures are called different names in different places. Talab, Johats, Koons, Bauli, Eri. In Tamil Nadu it is called as Eri. These are all the pictures of the water harvesting structures. These water harvesting structures not only stored water, it also was the architecture. Different style they stored water. Jalra in Western India, Talab in Central India, Bhavari, Ahar pines in Gangetic Plain. These Ahar pines is nothing but storing the water in the canal itself. Johats, Kund, Bhavari, Bandra Pad in Maharashtra. Maharashtra, it is nothing but a small check dam. Maharashtra has the typical terrain of hilly areas. So, wherever possible, they construct a small check dam like structures and store quantity of water. This helps in two ways. One is storing the surface water. Second is recharging the groundwater. Zinc in Ladakh regions, Cools in Himachal Pradesh, Jabu in Nagaland, and the bamboo drip irrigation in northeastern areas. Now we are in the third category of the water management. First is supply side, second is demand side, third is R&D side. What we can do? If you see this picture, they are supplying water directly to the root zone. They are not allowing the water to flow through open channel. This is called drip irrigation. Drip irrigation means supplying water at the root itself. Here, if you are seeing sprinkler irrigation, sprinkle the water. This is the polyhouses where the plants are grown in a controlled environment. If we follow these techniques, this not only reduces the water consumption but also increase the food grain production. Now we have come to the one important slide, constitutional provisions with regard to water. In the schools we have studied in the social science. Before we get into this content of the slide, constitution means we always remember two people. One is Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Rajendra Prasad is the Constitution Assembly chairman and B.R. Ambedkar is the drafting committee chairman. The Article 246 deals with the division of power between the union government and state government. What is this division of power? You may be aware that in India we have two government, union government or central government, and second one is state government. Between these two governments, there is a division of power. It means I will enact law, I will execute in these areas, and you will execute in these areas. These all have been listed already in our constitution. The union list, or it is called list 1, where only the union government have the power. Example, defense, foreign relations, railways, atomic energy. These are the special areas where only the union government have the power to enact law. Next is list 2, law and order, police. These are all purely under the subject of the state government. And third one is the concurrent list. Concurrent list means both the government can operate on that one. One classical example is education. Education is in the concurrent list. That is why schools are being run by both central government as well as the state government. Now our important point is water comes under which list? List 1, list 2 or list 3? Now we will see the list 2 first. The entry 17 of list 2 states that water, that is to say water supplies, irrigation, canals, drainage, embankments, storage and water power are purely under the jurisdiction of the state government. Only the interstate rivers falls under the central government list, entry 56. Now you would have got the idea. Many people might have thought whenever the issues of water comes, why not the center can intervene? Center can intervene subject to provision of the constitutions only. Center can intervene only on the issues related to interstate rivers. On the normal issues like water supply, irrigation, center's role is only advisory. That is why if you see in the recent past, many states or many activists, many NGOs are demanding that to move the water supply and irrigation from state list at least to the concurrent list. But that is not so easy because all the state governments have to agree it. This is for you to inform that water supply, irrigation are under the purview of state government. Only the interstate rivers are under the purview of central government. This is with regard to the how to deal with the interstate rivers. Government can enact law by using the Article 262. Let us not go detailedly about it. The institutional arrangement. As I told you now, 3 agencies are involved. One is central government or union government. What it does overall planning in the country and interstate rivers. What the state government does, planning and implementation of the project. And the third party comes into picture, stakeholders. Who are all the stakeholders? Whoever uses the water, they are stakeholders. You and me also the stakeholders. It means what it says is not only the central government or state government have the role to play, all the stakeholders also have a role to play. This again I mentioned here the role of the central government. The role of the central government is only technical, advisory and promotional nature. We cannot enforce directly the state government, you do this much supply, you do this much irrigation, you construct this much water storage structures. Union government or central government can give technical advice and the necessary fund. The initiation has to come from the state government. We, the Central Water Commission, is providing all technical support to the union government in dealing with water. Now we have reached our summary portions. Quickly we will go through. This is very important. India has a land resource of 2.4%, water resource of 4%, and population of 70% when compared to the world resources. The spatial and temporal variation is the main cause for the imbalance in the water distribution. Spatial variation means variation with respect to space or place. Temporal variation means variation with respect to time. 75 to 80% of rainfall in just 4 months of the monsoon period from June to September. This causes all the other major issues. Flood, drought, water quality and climate change are the issues before us. Next is equal emphasis shall be given on supply and demand management. It means supply side management means increasing the utilizable water resources by increasing storages, by conserving water harvesting structures. Demand side management means by using the water efficiently at all levels. Storages and interbasin transfers of water are needed for increasing the water availability. Watershed development, rainwater harvesting, traditional water conservation techniques will help us in increasing the water availability. The next one is we have to do sufficient research and development works to find out innovative technologies to meet the water sector challenges. The last point is mass awareness and stakeholders participation is very much essential for best water conservation and management. Teachers, we have come to the end of our lecture session. Hope you would have got the broad idea about the water resources scenario of India. With this, I thank you all for your patient hearing and wish you all the best. Thank you so much.